Well, good morning and welcome to the program today. We appreciate you tuning in. We know that we just look forward to being with you each week and know that all the testimonies and stories that you hear and that are shared, we know that they touch your heart. And I know that the testimony you heard of Carol Fisher truly touched your heart. I remember the day she came and we had gone to lunch and a lady walked up to us seeing a picture that Carol had brought of her daughter and asked if we were related to this young lady, and we said no. But the girl began to weep. She said, I know her. She said, I have followed the story because I'm from Baldwin County and I have followed this story closely and I know what this family has been through. And so from there she was able to meet Carol and just embrace and love on one another right there in the restaurant. And it is amazing to watch how God just connects all the pieces and brings us together when we need to be together, and it brought strength to both of them. And so we know that as you heard that you were definitely blessed, and each program is unique in itself. Each woman brings so much to the table because God has done such incredible things in their lives and called them to such incredible ministries and has given them the gifts and the talents and the strength and wisdom to do it. And it amazes me how that so many of us come from different walks of life and different backgrounds, but yet we all have that common source, and we are all children of God. And we just appreciate you taking this time and joining us, because I know that today you're also going to be blessed by the things you hear today. And I would like to hear from you if you're receiving something from this ministry and the Lord is ministering to you through it. I'd like to hear from you. If you have a story or testimony you would like to share, you can reach me at lyntministries@aol.com and just send me an email and let me know that you are being blessed, or like I said, you have a story you would like to share. I'm offering you a platform from which to sound the alarm and speak what has happened in your life. And you don't know that there may be a woman somewhere that you will be the key to what she needs in her life for that very day, that very moment. I've had women call me or contact me and say, you know, that was just what I needed to hear at that moment in my life. And so don't hold back. If you have that testimony, you go through the test so that you can have a testimony. The test is about you, but the testimony is about somebody else. And so just feel free to contact me and let's talk. And today I'm just delighted to have a friend of mine in the studio with us, and she and I met through school. Actually, she has been my granddaughter's school teacher for two years, not in a row, but first grade and third grade, and we have just come to know her and love her and appreciate the seeds of wisdom and all that she has sown into our granddaughter's life. And we know that God has a plan for her and that she is reaching young people. You know, you get them at that early stage, those early years, and you begin to mold them and make them into the people that God wants them to be. And we just appreciate teachers that aren't ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Teachers that aren't ashamed to say, hey, we don't do things like the world does. We believe in kindness. We believe in sharing. We believe in these biblical principles, and that she has been able to pour that into our granddaughter's life, and we just appreciate that so much. And we've had many programs, and they've come from all varieties. We've had programs of, as I was sharing earlier with my guests, we've had homeschool mothers. We have had adoptive moms and dads that have come and shared their story. And I just have had some people approach me recently and talking about foster care and becoming a foster parent, and how they have kind of felt like that might be something that God is drawing them to do, but they need information. They need a testimony. They need a story of somebody that's been there. And so knowing Jackie, I have found that she is a foster parent, and my hat is off to her and to any family that can do that and share their life in their home. And as I began to prepare to have her today, I just read some things, and some of that I wanted to share with you today, and how it is that today there are thousands of American children in foster care, and they have been taken from their families when a crisis has occurred, and they can no longer stay with their parents, which means there's a great need for foster parents, for those who will care for them and mentor them and offer these children a hope and a future. Kind of reminds me of what Jeremiah said, that God gives us a hope and a future. And there are so many children that need that. And how it's estimated that by the year 2020, that 22,500 children will die from the results of abuse or neglect. And that really surprised me there, but the reason why and the age really surprised me was that most of that will happen before their 5th birthday. And that just shocked me, because I love my grandchildren, and I have one that is 9 and one that is 4, and to imagine that 4-year-old not making it to her 5th birthday because she has been abused or neglected. And yet it happens every day around us. Every single day that happens. And I was just looking at some different scripture of what God says about it. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I did jot down a few of these scriptures. And one of them before Jackie comes is Psalms 82, 3 and 4. It says, "Defend the poor and the fatherless. Do justice to the afflicted and needy." And then James 1 and 27 says, "Pure religion and undefiled before God and the Father is this, to visit the fatherless and widows in their affliction." And then Proverbs 28 and 27, one of my favorites, it says, "He that gives to the poor shall not lack, but those who hide their eyes will suffer many curses." And I can see the blessings of the Lord upon those that reach out and help the poor, and help those that can't defend themselves, that stand with the fatherless and the orphan. And it just blesses my heart, because I know that this is a gift. I know it is a calling. And so today my guest is Jackie Thompson, and she and her family have not only opened their eyes, but they've opened their heart and their home as well. And I'm sure, Jackie, that has not been without a challenge and heartbreaks. But the rewards are endless. And Jackie is a wife and mom and a full-time teacher, as I stated earlier. And she also has a gift and a calling to do more. And you know, whatever God calls us to, He gives us the grace to do it. And it is her desire to make a difference in the lives of hurting children. And as a foster mom, I've invited Jackie to join me today and to share about this wonderful ministry. And so today, Jackie, welcome to Defining Moments. And just share with us your calling and your giftings and what the Lord has given you the ability to do.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad to be here and share in what truly is a calling for our whole family. A lot of times people ask me what led us to foster care, and people are always shocked when I tell them it was actually my husband's idea. Mm-hmm. Most people automatically assume that it was my idea, mm-hmm. and the first thing women say to me is, "How did you get your husband on board?" Well, it was actually the opposite. My husband had to get me on board. Wow. And several years ago, we had a situation in my personal family where we took in a family member who was having some problems at home. And he stayed with us for quite a while. And when things got better, he went back home. And my husband and I talked, that how fortunate we were that, we were able to, mm-hmm. to take him in. A lot of families don't have that luxury. Right. And really it goes back farther than that. Before we had our own children, we had kind of struggled being able to conceive. And so we had talked about foster care, mm-hmm. But we were newly married, and he had started a new job, so it just didn't work out at the mm-hmm. time. He mentioned that as a, possible solution instead of, if we didn't have our own children. And so, but then, thankfully the Lord heard my prayers, mm-hmm. and I have two beautiful children now. Sure. Kaylin is 18 and Clay is 16. Wow. And so, but after this situation with my nephew who came to stay with us, we really started talking about foster care again. And Tommy said, I really think this is something we ought to look into. But I was like, well, the children are still so little. Kaylin and Clay were still very young at the time. And I said, I just don't know if this is the right time. Well, a couple years passed, and we had a friend who works with DHR, and she and Tommy kind of got to work at the same time. His office building where he worked was back door to hers, and they parked near each other. And sometimes she would, say things about children or situations, Right. And so he kind of had an idea about what was going on in the world of DHR and stuff, and he would talk to me again about let's do this, and I was still very, very reserved, and I said, I just don't know. I said, I just really need the Lord to show me a sign, like we always ask for, a sign.
That big sign.
But it just so happened that the Lord said, okay, Jackie, you want a sign? I'll give you a sign. Well, the next day or two, the gas station here in town that always has the signs had a sign about foster care.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, well, there it is.
Here's your sign.
Then I went to church on Wednesday night, and somebody had brought pamphlets about foster care.
Wow.
And I said, okay, Lord, that's 2 in a row. I'm listening now. And so we went home. I went home and took the pamphlet from church, and Tommy and I talked about it, and the next GPS class that DHR offered for foster parents, we signed up for, and that was in August of 2011. And we went through the 13-week course and did all the background checks and that kind of stuff that you have to do. And so in October, the end of October, I got a call from DHR and wanting us to take our first foster child. And I cannot tell you how nervous I was, but also excited in a really strange way. So we went, and it was a little black girl. And I was at first we had said we would only take white children because of our own children. We still live in a small rural town.
Right.
It's still kind of,
It's a challenge.
it is. It's a real challenge. But it was a Wednesday when they called, and she had been found in a closet.
Oh.
Her parents were living in a home with no electricity, very, very little food, and they kept her in a closet because that was the warmest place in their home.
Oh.
She was very, very dirty. Her head was covered in ringworms. I got ringworms from her.
Bless her heart.
But I remember taking her to church that Wednesday night and getting out of the car, and I was just so very, very nervous to take this little black girl into church with me because it was just so different.
Exactly.
So different.
Yeah.
But I have a wonderful church family, and I went in, and they just enveloped us both, and from then on, my church family has been so supportive, and my own personal family has been so supportive.
Wow.
We could not do foster care without the support of our extended family. I get children, they call and say, what sizes of clothes do you need? What do you need? What can I do? They're always there for us. I remember we got 2 Christmases ago, 3 days before Christmas, we got a call for 3 little girls. And I was like, oh my goodness, it's 3 days before Christmas. What am I going to do with these 3 children?
Wow, Merry Christmas.
I get on the phone. My very good friend hand makes them 3 stockings with their names on them.
Oh, sweet.
My sister-in-law fills those stockings. My niece comes and keeps them while we go shopping, for
Wow.
Christmas morning. And so I just can't tell you how much support we've got from our family. And you have to have that. My own children have been so good to share their parents and their home and their everything with the children we've had. This is going into our 4th year of foster care, and we are on our 21st child.
Wow.
The child we have with us right now makes 21 children that we've had in our home.
That's amazing.
Some we've had only a couple of weeks. Some we've had almost a year. The little girl that's with us now, we've had her 11 months.
Wow.
And people ask me all the time, how do you do it? How do you let them go?
That was going to be my next
yes,
question.
it's usually the second question after how do you get Tommy on board. It's how do you let them go? I couldn't do that, and I tell them I can't either. I cannot let them go either. But somehow, because God has called us to this, he helps me do it. It's very, very tough, though. I've had 3 children in those 21 that I was okay to see go because of the challenge they had been, or because I knew, they were going back, they could understand. But, when you get a small child, it's hard for them to understand.
And they've bonded.
They've bonded. Most of them call us mom and daddy. Most of them think Kaylin and Clay are brother and sister. And it is hard. I had 3, a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old that we had 10.5 months. And they were going to be placed with their grandparents because their parents could not work things out for them to be able to return home. And that is the goal of DHR, is to return them to their family, their parents, if possible, and if not, then an extended relative. And we knew that going into foster care, that the goal of foster care is to parent these children until they can return home to a better home environment, ideally. But I had those 3 children, and their grandparents were from a Midwestern state, and they came to get them. They had come earlier to visit us and kind of get to know the children again, and then they came back to visit to get them and fly home with them. And I had to take them to the airport, and that was the hardest thing.
Trip, I'm sure.
I mean, it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do, to put those 3 children on that airplane. And because that was my heart, I loved them like they were my own. I try to do that with every child we get into our home, to treat them like our own children, so that they can see that there is a different way to live than what they have been subjected to. Many of the children we get into our home have been in very abusive situations. Maybe not to them, but they've seen their mother abused, or they've seen their father talked down to. A lot of times drugs are involved. Very, very few times have any of the children we got gone to church. Most of the times I take children to church for the first time.
Wow.
And so it's, it is very, very challenging, but it's also very, very rewarding.
Oh, yes.
And, I had so many people say to me, "You're such a blessing to them." And I tell them, no, I'm the one that's being blessed all the time from the children.
It's a twofold blessing.
It is. It really is.
I think about a lot of the women that have been on this program. That is their story. They came up in an abusive situation. They saw their moms beat down, literally with the fist, and left for dead. And then dad's in and out, or dad's nowhere to be seen, and they're left to fend for themselves and neglected because mom's got to work. And it's still abuse, whether it's intended or not. And it warps people's minds to live and grow up in that environment. And so many of these ladies, that is their testimony, is because they grew up in that environment. They didn't have a Jackie. They didn't have a Tommy to come to their rescue. They didn't have that safe haven. They stayed in that environment, and they later turned to the same lifestyle. And it took a process of coming to know God to clean them up, to get that out of their life. And I think about all these children that you have been able to do that, to be that buffer, to come in there and say, you know what, let me show you a better way. Let me show you that you can have a good life. Life is not all about being tormented and living in chaos, but there is a better way. It goes back to that scripture. You're proving to them what Jeremiah 29:11 says. God has a plan for their life, and it's good and perfect. And I like this saying because it kind of goes along with what you're telling me, is when we say yes, God will do the rest.
Yes.
And you have said yes, and you've just watched the hands of God come down and unfold with blessing after blessing. Go ahead, Jackie.
It's funny you should say that, because my grandmother, whenever a child moves, goes back or whatever, she's like, "I just don't know how you can keep doing this. I just think you need to stop." And I'm like, "Grandmother, if God has called you to something, you don't just stop.
No, you can't.
Just because something's hard doesn't mean you don't do it.
That's right.
Because believe me, it is hard.
Sure.
With foster care, we can't discipline them like we would our own children. There's no spanking, because it's hard for a child who's been in an abusive relationship to see the difference between discipline and a spanking and abuse.
Right.
And so that can be very challenging. So there's so many challenges that go along with it. We don't always agree with what the court decides is best for the child. That can be a challenge. We don't always agree with them going back home, but we know that that's the plan. And my prayer is always that something we have said or done, they will remember, and they will say, I don't have to continue in this cycle. I can choose a different lifestyle for myself. So,
and they have you praying for them,
yes,
even though they're back in that situation. Whereas before, maybe nobody was praying for them. Nobody knew those little dark secrets, but now they do.
And not just me, but so many of my friends and family members who have connected with these children that I've had in my home. They have made a special connection with different ones from either from our church or our home, and those people ask me about them continually. So I know that they're all being prayed for still.
And there's nothing like the power of prayer.
Exactly.
When they're in that situation, you're not there, you don't see it, but your prayers are there.
Yes.
And God can keep them even beyond that. So if there's somebody listening today, and I feel definitely sure they are, and they would like to do this, what advice would you give them? How could they get started? What do they need to do?
Well, they have to take the GPS class, which is a 13-week class. That just kind of prepares you for some things that you might face as a foster parent, and supposedly equips you with things, but it's kind of like parenthood. You don't really know till you're there. Exactly. But they can call the DHR here in Greenville, and that's 382-4400, and talk to Lisa Butts. She kind of heads up the new foster parents, and she can get them the information they need. Okay. It's relatively simple, just going those 13 weeks, taking that class, and you think, 13 weeks is a long time, but that's kind of to see if you're really serious or not, because foster kids don't need people are going to come in and not stick it out with them.
They don't need more problems.
Exactly. They want to see that the people that are there are there because they truly care about children and want to try to make a difference in their life. So if you can stand those 13 weeks of classes, and it's just a little bit of a background check and just some good old common sense, then you can do it. It's you don't have to have a big house. We had one extra room with bunk beds. You don't have to have a fancy car. You just have to have seat belts for everybody, and you have to have insurance, and that's about it.
Wow.
And you have to have a heart that's willing to say yes to where the God leads.
Yeah. And it's not for the faint of heart.
No, it's not.
Because just like you were saying, on those days when you have to say bye, and the tears are flowing,
yes,
and then you got grandmama over here with all the good intentions saying, why don't you quit, and then you got the enemy over here going, Jackie isn't really worth it, look what it's taken from your children, or look what it's doing to you emotionally. You have to be rooted and grounded in the knowledge that is a calling.
So, and that is one of the things that I have felt guilty about sometimes. My own children, what are they missing out? But they both assure me all the time, Mama, we want to be doing this. We do. And I think that it gives them a different perspective on life, seeing that children in their area have it really hard. Children much younger than them have had it really tough. And so I hope that they are going to be better people for it.
Oh, I'm sure they will. It's teaching them the love of Christ. It's teaching them the value of selflessness. And, I know that you have one going away to college.
Yes.
And what a better place to demonstrate the love of Christ than in a world that has gone into chaos. And so many people are self-centered. Life is all about me. I've got to make the big bucks for myself. And we have become such a selfish nation that life is all about me. What can I get out of it? And then you find this remnant of people that say, you know what, life isn't all about me. Life is about what can I sow into somebody else's life. So what if I might not sleep tonight? This child has come out of such a chaotic environment, and maybe there's nightmares, maybe there's just the separation from parents, and you have to deal with somebody else's mess. You're basically cleaning up somebody else's mess. But there's a child caught in the middle of that your selfless love says, I'll stay up all night with you. And I'm sure you've had moments like that.
Oh, we have. We've lost lots of sleep.
I would imagine
lost lots of sleep, yes. And I want to say, too, we don't by any means think we are perfect parents, because we're not. We are so far from perfect, and we make mistakes with our own children and with these foster children, but they don't need perfect parents.
No.
They just need somebody that's
Right.
there and says, I love you. I'm going to love you just like you are. And that can be difficult sometimes, because most of the children we get have been good kids. And they're just, a product of their parents' problems.
Right,
It's
right.
not their fault. They've not done anything wrong. It's their parents. Most of them are such good kids and just have a longing for love and acceptance, and that's all they need.
Wow.
But we do have occasionally that one that's a little trouble too, and they just need to be shown, I'm going to love you in spite of it.
Right.
So
We have just a few more moments, but I have a friend that she and her husband's daughter has been missing for almost 7 years. When she went missing, she left a 9-year-old son. They became his parents, and they still haven't found her body. They still haven't heard anything from her. So everything just points to the fact she's somewhere dead. And they are often getting calls thinking they have recovered her body. But in the midst of all of their trauma and tragedy is a 9-year-old boy that was growing up over the last 7 years, not knowing where his mom was, not knowing what happened to her, and not having a dad in his life. And he just rebelled against everything and everybody, and some really bad events happened. His grandfather wound up being stabbed, put in the hospital, almost died as a result of this young man acting out. And a lot of things happened that people didn't understand and pointed the finger at that child. But my thing to them was, who helped him with his pain?
right.
Who helped him deal with his loss? And so, there was his grandparents just doing the best they could. And so, yes, thank you for answering the call and for showing these children that there is a better way. And thank you, Jackie, for being with us. And I'm sure that if you have any questions and you would like to know more about this, that Jackie would be glad to talk with you. And you can contact me again at lynnTministries@AOL.com. And I'll connect you guys, and so can't we make your dream happen and help you fulfill your call. And I want you to remember this, out of everything you've heard us say here today, when you realize just how much Jesus Christ loves you and you surrender your life to Him, then you will experience your greatest defining moment.